Ian Stewart is an icon of Australian football, which of course is stating the obvious when we're talking about a player with 3 Brownlows, 2 premierships and official legend status. Yet there is much, much more to his life. It has been a fascinating, intriguing and occasionally traumatic life from the cradle. Finally, he has agreed to discuss his journey. Welcome, Ian.
Hello, Mike.
I've been at you for 10 years to do this. What convinced you to say yes?
I liken it to a game of football life. I've played 4 quarters and I'm now into time on.
I want to go back to the start. Way back to the early...
South Melbourne or St Kilda?
No, just of your life, to the early, to the early 40s. You're born in 1943 to a labourer in the mines named Aldo... Is it Cervi or Chervy?
Chervy.
Aldo Chervy.
Be careful what you say, Mike. Chervy, Aldo Chervy.
And a local girl named Anita Stewart.
That's my mother, yeah.
Right. Now, Aldo didn't stay around long, did he? Why is it funny?
Well, the way you put it. No, I think about three years of age, he decided to go back to the big smoke, or into the big smoke, Melbourne, from Tasmania, Queenstown.
Yeah. So, did you stay in Queenstown? Did you and your mum stay there?
For a while, till I was about 4 or 5 years of age, yeah.
And then went to Hobart?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me what unfolded in Hobart.
My mother was a single mother, obviously, and she had to work. There were no pensions, and I was placed in an orphanage.
Boys' home.
It was called Boys Town.
Boys Town. Yep. So your mother had to, that was a matter of necessity. Your mother had to put you in the orphanage at what, 7 or 8?
Something like that. Yeah.
For how long?
A year or 2, something like that.
Your father, I think you saw him once more in your life.
When I was 25, his brothers organised a barbecue in Hampton, and he was there, and I was introduced to him, and we shook hands, and he walked off.
Wow! Did you know when they invited you to the barbecue? Did you know your father would be there? How did you feel about that?
I was expecting. I was looking forward to it.
And were you? I suspect I know the answer to this, but how did you feel when you shook hands and then he turned his back?
Disappointed, but disappointed. But it wasn't. Yeah, just disappointed.
And did you seek to sort of have further discussions with him, or was that?
Surprisingly, 6 months later, he passed away with a heart attack.
Did that evoke emotional response from you?
I went to the funeral, but I felt like a duck out of water, actually. But I went to the funeral.
So you mentioned, what are your memories, the broad question, your childhood, when you look back? Do you have fond memories, or do you just sort of say, well, it was part of growing up? What was it?
Well, they weren't fond memories.
No. But you loved your mum, didn't you?
Yes, I did, yeah. She was a good person, very good person. She never drank or smoked. So obviously I didn't get my drinking habits from her. No, she was a good person.
You learnt those well.
Well, Queenstown was a sort of mining town, and where we lived was 3 miles away from Queenstown, which was called Gormanston, and it was like the Wild West. You know, the Wild West movies where the saloon doors swing open, and often as a young little kid I'd be down there and I'd see bodies coming out backwards from the saloon. So
that could have happened anywhere, Ian.
With swinging doors, but it could have.
Yeah.
It was that was.
But then you've grown up effectively in Hobart, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're a mad footy head, as we all were at that period of time, or most of us were at that period of time. You barraced for North Hobart. and your hero was a Tasmanian great named Johnny Leadham.
That's correct, yeah.
And then, for some reason, you played with Hobart.
Well, getting back to John Leadham, when I was about 13 or 14, he was Mr. Football in Hobart.
Yep.
And he had a delivery, he was a delivery baker, let's say. So I admired him so much that I'd follow him around on my push bike while he made his deliveries around Hobart.
Did you talk to him?
No, never. No. Never met him.
Well, you were overawed, but just...
Yes.
The hero from a distance. Yeah. 62, you decide to come to what the Tasmanians called the mainland and take your chances. How did you end up at St Kilda?
Ian Drake was the CEO then, and Darryl Bordock was there, Darryl. And every kid in Tasmania that played football and sport looked up to Darryl Bordock. He was every young person's hero. So wherever Doc went, had Doc gone to any other club, I would have wanted to go to that club. So,
but is this true? 2 or 3 clubs that expressed interest in you after your year in Hobart. St Kilda thought you needed more time. Is that true?
That's true.
So what changed that? They thought they might lose you?
I changed that. I paid my own fare over and arrived at the airport and said, I'm here. So they sent somebody out, or they arranged for me to meet somebody in Fitzroy Street in Kilda at a cafe. So I preempted the decision for me to want to play.
Okay. This is 1963, round 1. The St Kilda team has the young Stewart on a wing, a big tall blonde bombshell named Dittrich in the ruck, Bob Murray in defence, and Jimmy Wallace playing forward. No wonder you won a flag a couple of years later. All making your debut the same day.
Same day.
Yeah.
Well, starting with Jim Wallace, he used to fly his plane down.
From Quambatook.
From Quambatook, that's correct.
Yeah.
Carl's first game was unbelievably good, great. He was a 6'4", 6'5" guy that used to be able to jump that high, and he was aggressive. And as it's been written, he took on Ron Barassi. But Carl was outstanding. Bob Murray was the fullback for the next 15 years. I played 8 years.
Did you get cleaned up that day?
Yes, I did actually, yes.
By whom?
A former Tasmanian, Tassie Johnson.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been deliberate.
I've never met him and never forgiven him. Yeah.
Now, Doc was playing, that was the second year for Doc. He was starting off his second year.
He was captain that year, first year, second year.
Yeah. You sort of still treat Doc as if you're still the kid who's just met his hero, don't you? Every time you talk of him, it's sort of with this sense of reverence about this bloke.
Well, I've thought about it, but you're allowed to have heroes.
Yeah, sure.
You're allowed, and I might have been mature on the field. I might have been able to play football, but off the field, I was immature. So that happens a lot. Even now, when you see certain players, you see them playing, and then you meet them after. You realise how young they are. So I always looked up to Doc, and there was for a long time I hardly spoke to him.
Really? Really?
Well, I was overawed. He was still my hero, but on the field I didn't have that feeling.
But you, I don't know if you had lockers then or not. If you had hooks anyway, he was number 4 and you were number 5. So you weren't far away from him.
He was sort of, might have been 6 years older, but he was about 15 years older in maturity.
Yeah, okay.
He'd coached in Tasmania, captain when he was 19 or 18.
At Latrobe?
Captain and coach of the team at 19.
Wow.
You know.
Is that right?
Yeah. So he was a mature player.
Yes, yeah, okay. I think it's fair to say you're a naturally anxious man, aren't you?
What did you say? Of course I am, yes.
Still or not?
Not as much, no. One of the few good, not one of the few things, as you grow older, you grow out of that and you get a lot more peace. Yes, I've always been anxious. Yeah.
Talking about that anxiety, fact or fiction? We're at preliminary final week 1966. St Kilda are playing Essendon in the prelim final, correct? You have a suspicion that Essendon will play Ken Fraser in the centre, and you tell Allan Jeans that you're not going to play. Is that fact or fiction?
Not play or play on him.
No, not play.
No.
So that story about Jeansy seeing you at Glen Huntly Station for 2 or 3 hours to talk you into playing is myth.
No. Well, it's a bit of truth in it, a little bit. The week before, Ken Fraser played in a final and took 14 marks. He was a great centre-half forward, but he played in the centre this day. And I was up in the stand watching it, and I thought, well, I can't handle this guy next week. I won't be able to handle him. I told Allan that, and he said, well, you're going to have to play on him. I said, I can't. He's going to be too good for me. He's too big, too good. I was scared of having to play on him.
Wow.
I was scared. But
not physically scared, scared of how good he was in the air. Yeah.
But the gods were very kind to me that Friday night.
It rained.
Poured. And Ken Fraser was out of business. He was a centre-half forward playing in the centre in the mud. Well, you know. But that other thing about me not going to play, that's rubbish.
OK. I asked you with fact or fiction.
Yeah, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
How can I just say I'm not going to play?
No, I know, but you know that at that period, I asked you earlier in the week, was Johnny Henderson another? I'd heard this story that you were uncomfortable playing on John Henderson, and you scoffed at that and just...
Well, when you're 19 and you're starting out in the centre, after 3 games I was moved to the centre. Well, all of those players, Jack Clark, Hassaman, John Henderson, all of those players could beat you. It's your first year in league football. You were 19 and they were seasoned players. They were stronger and better. But
Not better.
But at that time they were.
OK, yeah.
You know, at that time they were.
OK. You didn't mention Dennis Marshall there. How did you rate him?
With good reason.
Why?
He gave me a thrashing at the MCG one day.
In the final?
I'm not sure, but it could have been. I'm not sure. It was I was playing for Richmond.
Those things weighed heavily on you, didn't they? Because you weren't used to having your pants pulled down, metaphorically.
I beg your pardon, mate.
Sorry. You weren't used to having your colours lowered, were you?
Oh, I don't know. I got beaten. Well, not as badly as that. Marshall cleaned me up. I'll never forget that game.
Good player, was he? A classy player.
He was an athlete. He was running 15, 16, 20 Ks a day in those games.
You sure?
Yeah, he ran a lot. Well, he ran this day, I can tell you, he ran. But his back line was strong. And he ran across the ground, and they fed him, but I didn't have the fitness or the ability to keep up with him, and he dominated.
OK. I mentioned the talk with Jeansy in '66. Your relationship with Jeansy, I don't know whether it was healthy at any particular time, but it was progressively more strained as you went on at St Kilda, wasn't it?
It was. Jeans wasn't the easiest bloke to get along with.
No.
And neither was I. Allan was more comfortable coaching well-adjusted players. Players that had a little bit of family issues or a little bit of, what's the word, a little bit of...
Flair, maybe?
No, not so much flair. He didn't mind that.
He didn't?
No, well, he didn't mind Doc's flair.
Yeah.
Well, he didnn't like Ditridge's flair.
He didn't like Ditridge or Davo's flair, did he?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Alan Davis?
He never mentioned it to me. Allan never mentioned it, but no. But I was made captain and I was on the selection committee. Well, as I've said earlier, I liked football and I thought I knew a little bit about football, and I used to be outspoken on the match committee. Should never have been on the match committee. So our association deteriorated from then on.
OK. That was 1969?
Or 68, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I disagreed with a lot of things, Allan, but I should have shut up. But I didn't.
But what was it in terms of strategy or players that he would pick?
Yeah, it was both.
Yeah.
He was a very at that stage, he was a very conservative, defensive coach.
Yep.
Very.
Yep.
But wasn't up to me to say as captain. But maybe I got a little bit in front of myself because of that little bit of success I had, maybe. But I shouldn't have been as outspoken as I was.
Okay.
I wouldn't have liked it looking back.
The roles reversed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there an eruption, or was it just gradually at the end of that season? You only lasted one season as captain.
Well, that was the eruption.
Yeah.
Only lasted
But
1 year.
did it come in a confrontation with Jeansy?
No. Hardly ever spoke to Allan. Maybe twice, three times in the whole life.
My view, I knew him a little at St Kilda and a lot at Hawthorn, and I thought he was a much more mellow individual at Hawthorn, and I really enjoyed his company. You and I went to see him in his deathbed, didn't we? Did you feel you needed to do that?
No, I never initiated it. He did.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
What, did he ring you?
No, he rang Ross Smith and Barry Breen.
Yeah.
And they both rang me. And they said, Allan would like to see you.
Really?
And you drove me out. Or you and I went together.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
we did.
yeah.
Was that difficult?
It was... I'm glad it happened. He was very generous and very interesting and very kind. And that was 2 or 3 weeks before he died. He said things that I didn't know. One of the things I asked him about, who was the better player, Darryl Baldock or Lee Matthews? He coached both.
Yeah.
Oh, he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't give me an answer. And he said, Barney reckons that Lee Matthews reckons that Allan never saw him at his best. So he said, how could he compare him with Baldock? So then he said to me, I said, how did I play? He said, well, I thought you were a bit lucky to win the 65 Brownlow.
Yeah.
He said that.
Yeah.
And I said, so do I.
Were you lucky?
65, very lucky.
Where?
I tied with somebody.
Noel Teasdale.
And I missed a few games, but I was very lucky. I've been very lucky in my football career. Very lucky. Seriously.
Really?
Yeah. But he also said, no, you deserved the 66. He said that.
Yep.
And We spoke about things like that.
Okay.
Well, I said, was I difficult to get along with? And he said, no.
Did he?
He said, no, I paid that up.
Did you ask him that question?
No. We didn't get on that well.
Retrospectively, were you difficult to get on with at St Kilda?
I didn't think so. When I left, because of the exchange with Billy Barrett, Barrett was a great player at Richmond. When I left, they didn't seem to overly mind when the swap happened. But when Billy only played 2 games, and I had a good year, they had egg on their face.
Yep.
They were embarrassed. Then they had to cover their tracks. Then they started sort of saying things like the one that you mentioned with Ken Fraser.
Right.
Things like that. Oh, he was difficult.
Okay.
He was this.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think I was. I actually, away from the actual playing part of it, I was very quiet and shy. So I wouldn't have been difficult.
The footy, as good as you were, footy seemed to tax you, didn't it? I mean, did you... This is, again, fact or fiction, that you would often dry reach on the ground.
Every
You were
game.
so nervous.
Every game.
Every game. What was that? What was the basis of that? Was it insecurity?
I never felt comfortable. But once never felt comfortable leading up to the game. Always scared, very apprehensive, Once I got out in the ground, all that disappeared. And it usually disappeared after I vomited.
Really?
Yeah, it just disappeared.
But that was your natural habitat, wasn't it?
It was my stage.
Yeah. Richard, at the end, after the 70 season, you end up going to Richmond. Now, there was a suggestion that... Did you con St Kilda a bit there? Did you? You did. Did you? You can say yes, don't just nod your head. You indicated that you were prepared to go to Perth. And then late in the discussion, you sort of said to the Saints, look, I'll save you paying a transfer fee for Billy Barrett. I'll go to the Tigers. Is that right?
Some of that's right. It was a little bit. Alan Swab was the general manager at Richmond, who also worked previously at St Kilda as the assistant secretary.
That's right. Yep.
So he knew the players. I'm talking about off-field players.
Yes.
People that ran the club, and we hatched this together. It was another version of the movie Sting.
Yeah. No, I can believe that. Yeah.
We set it up.
So you play 5 seasons at the Tigers?
No, well, 3 full seasons.
Yeah, and then bits of 2. That's right.
bits. I was
78 games, a flag and a Brownlow. It's hard for people to appraise themselves. Did you think you were more mature and maybe even a better player at Richmond?
Oh, yes.
You were?
I was more mature.
Yeah.
I'd finally grown up at 28.
Is that just a natural evolution?
I would think so.
Yeah.
And I got married at that time. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
The Richmond, you're in 2 teams of the century, which is a massive accolade. Not that I know you well enough to know that stuff doesn't seem to worry you. Barrett's in the centre, Stewart's on the bench. Is that fair?
Yes, very. Barrett played great football. Let's say he was a great player for Richmond for 10 years. I was there for 78 games.
Okay.
I was on the bench. I had good company on the bench. There was Jeff Rains.
Yes.
And there was Des Rowe.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't upset at all.
Okay.
I wasn't at all. They couldn't change that centre line.
And Burke, Barrett and Clay.
And Barrett deserved to be in that side of the team of the century. He deserved it.
Talking about the accolades, one thing that I think you were entitled to be miffed about was when the Australian Football Hall of Fame started, there were originally a dozen legends and you weren't one of them. Were you miffed?
Well, I was living in Queensland at the time. Now, weren't you a selector?
I can't remember.
You're a selector, weren't you?
I might have been.
That's why I wouldn't come onto this show. It's taken me 20 years to get over it.
I often got overruled, you know.
Was I miffed? I didn't know about it. The day it was announced was the first time I'd heard of it, that the 12 were named. Yeah. Did I get over it in 5 minutes?
Yeah, okay, good. One game at Richmond that I'm interested in may not have been the best. It was just it was memorable. It was the Windy Hill Brawl, right? You played for the Tigers. You kicked 5 goals that day.
Did I?
Yeah. Were you playing in the middle?
No, on the half-back flank.
No. Are you doing humour now, eh? Were you in the centre or were you playing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think Oh, that's right. Yes. Seriously, I didn't know. I kicked 5.
You didn't know you kicked 5?
Honestly, I didn't know.
I don't think you did it in any other of your league games.
Well, I didn't know I kicked 5.
Right.
Out there, I didn't know. Honestly. But if it's the same day, Tudner was the coach of... he's the coach of Essendon, that captain and coach, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Well, Des put out his hand to say, all the best, Dewey. Put out his hand. I lifted my hand up and he went, chop.
Did he?
You know where?
Yeah.
Ah, that's right. So I had to go to
when I said when I know where, you mean in the Jats? Okay.
In the orchestras.
Yeah, orchestras, yeah. You're older than me.
So I had to go to the flank to recover, half-forward flank, because I was bent over like this for about 15 minutes. I went into the centre and they bounced the ball. Tuddy's there. I just ran straight at him. Didn't go, the ruckman bounced the ball, went straight at him, hit him with everything I had, which wasn't much. Hit him with everything. He started squealing. No. And the umpire said, you got what you deserve.
Really?
Yeah. So now the fight must have started after that. Was I involved? No. Did I give evidence on behalf of a couple of Richmond officials? Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Did I perjure myself?
Oh, no, never.
I'm not going to say.
Coaching, and I'm really intrigued by this. You finished at Richmond in 1975, is that right?
Well, 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. So,
And 4 or
next
5
year,
games.
Ronnie Joseph leaves North Melbourne, goes to South Melbourne for 10 minutes, secures you as coach, and you drag them up the ladder significantly for 2 years. Why did you leave?
Well, the reason was Craig came around to my home.
You played the final in the second year, didn't you?
Yeah, we played, Richmond out at Waverley. Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Was it that year? I'm not sure. Anyhow, Craig came around and said, look, he said, Ian, I'm going to step down as president. And here's the new president, George Kamikaris. And I thought, geez, George didn't know football, but he was a supporter. I thought, it was hard enough in the first 2 years. So I said, look, Craig, I'm exhausted. Because of the things that you mentioned earlier, I used to get exhausted. And we were doing, everybody there was doing a lot of things, multiple jobs. You know, everybody was doing multiple things. So I was exhausted. I said, I've booked a holiday. I want to go away, have a rest, and then I'll tell you. He said, Craig said, we've got to know now. And then he said, I'll give you double the money that you've been paid.
But do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I'd rather not say.
Why? Statute of limitations, the tax man won't get you.
I wasn't worried about the tax man. I have been over the years, but not at that particular time. 20 grand.
Okay.
And he said, we'll give you double. I said, Craig, my motivation is not money. He said, I want an answer now. Well, I said, well, you get an answer now, I'm resigning. So it was Craig was a corporate man.
Yep.
And they're used to sort of getting answers from people when they go to staff and said, here, take this, yes or no. And that way, I said, no, I want us to set up a recruiting system so we bring in academies of young players and bring them through. You know, this is what I want. But he was stepping down. But he'd been a wonderful benefactor to that club, unbelievable. He was enthusiastic, as you know, very positive, always positive about winning and that. So he was a great leader of our club.
At the end of 78, you replaced Ian Thorogood at Carlton. And probably, I think it's fair to say, it was the only period in your career where things just went awry, didn't they? You coached the Blues, you lost your first game to Richmond by 77 points. You won one of the first 6.
3.
Oh, so you were gone after 3?
I only coached for 3.
Okay. And in that time, though, it's not unfair to say that you fell out with Walls, McClure, Gallagher. Anyone else? Jones.
There were reasons. We got there and we started doing pre-season training, and I was amazed how much talent the players had. We never dropped the ball, and it was magnificent skills. And we started pre-season. And there was a run from somewhere to somewhere. Mm-hmm. 2 players caught the tram. One was Percy Jones.
Yep.
And one was the assistant coach, Adrian Gallagher.
Yeah.
So Jonesy was suspended for a few weeks, whatever.
A few?
Well, 2 or 3 or 4, I'm not sure. It wasn't a big deal. Well, I didn't think it was a big at the time.
Yeah.
You know, he caught the tram. What are you supposed to do?
Yes.
He catches the tram.
Yeah.
Pay for his fare. So we asked Adrian to step down.
Yeah.
It's assistant coach. I'm trying to sort of start something there about discipline. Mm-hmm. Just because I was undisciplined myself didn't mean my team was going to be undisciplined. So I'm letting you know I was undisciplined in some aspects of my life. Wolsey, the match committee consisted of Lofsey, the chairman, Wes Lofts, Serge, Silvani and Kevin Hall. There was a suggestion that they would they would like to change the captain. I agreed with that decision.
Wolsey was captain? Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. One of the worst mistakes I've ever made.
Really?
Shouldn't have accepted. Shouldn't have. It's a terrible decision.
But it wasn't driven by you?
No. I what's the word? I seconded. I agreed with it.
Right.
I agreed. But I couldn't have initiated it. I'd never been there at the club. They'd all been great players at the club for many, many... They knew what they wanted. They suggested it. And I supported it. I didn't have to support it. They didn't say, you have to do this. I supported it. Terrible mistake.
But didn't your relationship with Wolsey erupt when you were really severely critical of the way he played in a game? Did you accuse him of not having a go?
I might have. No, but see, the captaincy business was before the season.
Right.
If I said to something about him not going in hard enough was during those 3 games.
Right.
If I said that, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said it. It didn't apply. But if I said it, I was wrong.
Okay.
He wasn't. He was a very, very, very good player, and he wasn't scared. And I might have used that connotation that it didn't go in hard enough. Maybe I did.
Okay. So was it? Have you squared it up with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He wasn't sure. I have.
Yeah.
But the other one was Alex Jesselenko, the captain. Yeah. That's the real one. Now, McClure one, I don't know where that came from. I didn't know I had a falling out with McClure. I don't remember that.
No, you may not have.
But I think you've mentioned that before, but I can't. If he says... But a lot of players, they do embellish things over a long period of time, and if it suits them to use somebody.
Yep.
But Jezza, Jezza was captain, and we'd lost our first 2 games, and it was half time. I remember it vividly. I said to Jezza, along the lines of, I don't care how good you think you are, but you've got to pick up a man. He glared at me. I can still feel that glare.
Yeah.
You know, that Eastern European glare?
Yeah.
Oh, anyhow.
No words?
No. Jezza was a man of few words. No. Looks were enough.
Yeah.
And that was sort of... I'd probably burnt a lot of bridges by that, that scenario. And that was about it. I wasn't feeling well.
Yep.
I had a heart palpitations. But what comes next was where I let Carlton Football Club down and myself down, what comes next. It would have taken me 3 or 4 weeks to get over this. I wasn't well. I was struggling, nervous tension, all those things. Bang. I could have recovered. I would have recovered had I wanted to and gone back there. I didn't, and I lacked the guts to take on that fight with those individuals that I'm talking about. Not so much fight, to turn them around. I lacked that. I took the easy way out.
Which was to say you've got a heart condition and you need to move on.
Not so much that I had a minor heart condition, but it just would have needed 3 or 4 weeks off. I could have come back, but I chose to take the weak way out. And I'll never, ever... I will regret it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I should have followed it through.
Gee, it's a big admission.
Well, it's true. But anything else that happened out there that did happen, didn't happen. Anything other than what I've said didn't happen. I got on well with George Harris. I hardly ever spoke to him. The match committee guys, they had that much experience, the match committee. There was no animosity, nothing. Another mistake I made by going there, though, and looking back on my personality, I went there on my own.
Yep. You need a lieutenant, no doubt about that.
But I had nobody else, not one other person. That was a mistake.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. You go back to South Melbourne? You just got a spiritual bond with the Swans, haven't you?
Well, they tried so hard.
Yeah. And a lot of your mates, we talked about before, Ricky Quaid, Tony Franklin, that group, Ray Ball,
Roundy.
Barry Round, all those sort of blokes.
They tried hard.
Yeah.
Well,
One other
only
bloke that I left out was Greg Miller, who you were close to.
Greg Miller was a workaholic and a great eye.
Yeah.
He was instrumental in building the shell for South Melbourne that went up to Sydney eventually, and you saw them grow and play 50, 100 games, and then they started dominating, you know? It was his recruiting.
I want to ask you about when you went to St Kilda and you were CEO. You remember round 4, 1983? No idea? St Kilda's playing Geelong at Waverley. Outrun the Saints.
Oh.
3 newcomers. Paul Morwood, Silvio Fascini at 19, and a kid from Ballarat called Lockett. Remember, all made their debut the same day.
Did they?
Yeah, but Morwood and Fascini were playing with St Kilda without a clearance.
No, not quite right.
Not quite right?
No. Fascini, we went to court, restraint of trade.
Yeah.
Ron Merker was accused, so we won that case. See, Silvio obviously was an Italian family. He didn't want to leave his family. He didn't want to play in Sydney.
Right.
Silvio, we won that case. Silvio was entitled to play. He had a clearance or whatever. We won the case. Tony is different. Paul Morwood, we were negotiating with the Swans. Paul, they wouldn't clear him. I think they were upset with me because of Silvio. They wouldn't clear him. I spoke to Tony Jewell, because Paul had been training with us, and I spoke to the coach, Tony, and I said, would you mind, what do you think about us playing Paul? Yeah, we need players. He said, yeah, why not? So we sent Paul out. Now,
illegally, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Yeah. But what made that worse was, for me, was that Lindsay Fox was sitting next to Jack Hamilton,
who was
the boss of the VFL.
Yeah, the VFL, yeah.
So Lindsay came, Jack said, that's Maud. Lindsay'd been overseas. And he came racing down at half time. He said, you so-and-so, what are you doing? No. And he came in, I tore strips off me. Anyhow, he played the next week, Paul, and played thereafter.
He did?
Won the best of first at St Kilda.
Plugger. Did you recruit Plugger?
Well, I signed him up. The recruiting officers were Graham Jelly and Stewart. They said he could play. And because I had to determine what sort of contract he was going to be on, I went up to see him play. Took my son up there about 8 or 9. He was 8 or 9 years of age. And I said, what do you think? Tony played centre-half forward in the under-16s, under-17s. And I said, oh, he's good. My boy said, oh, he's good, Dad, he's good.
That was Ben?
Yeah, Ben said, he's good. I said, yes. Yeah. And I said, he's very good. I said, so that night I went around to Tony's place, his mother's place, and Tony, and said we'd sign him, put him on a 5-year contract and give him
5-year contract? Then? How old was he? 17? Yeah.
You didn't have to be a genius.
Should have put him on a 15-year contract.
You didn't have to be a genius to see that.
No.
And somebody, when I went back to the club, they said, what made you... I said, well, he's got a chip on his shoulder. And I like
Then?
Bigger one then.
Wow.
Well, he was a young bloke, 17. He had a chip on his shoulder, and he had that look in his eye, like that. He'd look at you like that, and so, you know...
One last question about your time at St Kilda. No, your time at St Kilda. Your CEO, head of football, effectively CEO, Tony Jewell's the coach. You had a slow midfield, brave but slow and hard. Did you water the ground the night before every home game? No. I spoke to Tony, and you're correct. We had Cunningham, Burns, Keel, very slow, courageous players. Yes, I did water it. Actually, I did water it, but I asked the coach, and he said, "Can I join you?" That's right. Well, so this is, as I understand it, it's in the dark of night, the disco's on in the behind you. You and TJ have got a hose each and a half dozen cans. And then you do your job, go home, and the automatic sprinkler system comes on. Is that right?
I'm not sure about the latter.
You sure?
I'm not sure. but we watered it enough. It was a 4-hour job.
How many cans? You've been married to Susie for 48 years. Wow. It's good effort. 3 kids. We talked about Ben before, Lauren and Amy.
We didn't talk about Ben before, did we?
Yeah, when you talked about when you took him to Ballarat to watch the play.
Just then, yeah, Ben, yeah.
And Amy, who died at 25 in a car accident.
Yeah, 24, yeah.
That must have, well, of course, it's still is, that must have knocked the family around, but how did you cope with that, losing Amy at 25?
Very hard, but imagine how hard it is on the mother. Very, very hard, yeah.
Did Susie's a very semi-composed, measured woman. Would have been particularly difficult, but did she, in relative terms, did she cope okay?
Amy was a horsewoman.
Yes.
Amy was studying to be a vet. She never got the marks originally, but she went through the back door with different science degrees. Excuse me. And she was at Melbourne Uni, and she was in her second year wanting to be a vet. So she was an animal person. She loved animals, and they loved her. Susie loved animals, and still loves them, and that helped her through. Without the animals, without the horses.
Yeah,
We've kept Amy's room with all her trophies, ribbons. There's an award every year for the Amy Stewart Memorial for the best rider, because she was a great little rider.
Yeah. I knew Amy. I liked her. I mean, of course you like kids, but I liked her warmth. When she trusted people, and she was just so open and so warm.
Well, she struggled a little bit. She had a speech impediment, and she communicated with you a lot through the internet or the
internet, yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know you spoke at her funeral, you and Rex Hunt, and it was beautiful. No, she was a quiet girl, very quiet, but she was selfless, and she had made a decision to give her organs when she passed away, and most of her organs were given to people and saved their lives.
Wow.
Heart, lungs, all of those things.
The ultimate sacrifice,
Yeah,
isn't
she
it?
did, yeah, she did. She was a special person, a very special person, and we miss her. The thing I miss most about Amy, that's not right, the thing I miss most. The thing that I regret, that she never got married and had a family and children, She never experienced those things.
Well, you've got Lauren's got kids, and
got 2,
Ben's got kids. Ben, your only
Ben's
boy.
got 3, yeah.
Ben, St Kilda drafted or recruited Ben, and he left, and then they chopped him. Were you angry with the administration of the time?
Yes, I was. I was.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been recruited. Wasn't good enough. Not even close.
Do you think they did it as a marketing ploy?
Whatever the reason. Whatever. They got him down. He played about 2 or 3 games in the reserves, always on the bench, only got on for 5 minutes. No, I wasn't happy, no.
Have you got any regrets about how you've lived your life?
Football?
Or just your life?
Well,
I don't mean like Amy. I mean the things that you've done.
Well, yes, I have. Yes,
Yeah.
I have. I've had two or three drink driving charges. Mm-hmm. And I left the scene.
That was in the middle of the city?
Yes.
Yeah.
I left the scene. That's happened. I regret that. I was a bloody idiot. You know.
Drink drive bloody idiot, yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. I regret that. Just to, in line with that, if I played now, I wouldn't drink during the football season. The damage that alcohol can do to you, you know, you realise when you get older. I'm not suggesting you should give it up.
You should. You should suggest that. So the driving is at least 3, isn't there?
What do you? Are you with Allan Jeans? You're in the police force. Are you?
Sorry, right. I'll settle for 2 or 3.
No, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Two penalties were for 2 years each.
Okay.
4 years.
Licence.
So for 5 years, I wasn't driving.
Yeah. 5 years.
Yeah. But that's 40 odd years ago.
Yeah.
Mike.
Okay.
Do you realise that?
It's not a royal
Do you
commission.
want to go back any further?
No. Sorry. The 2 premierships. What are your memories? 66 by a point.
There was a massive build-up for the supporters. Older supporters that never thought they'd see a premiership. I lived around the area, around St Kilda, around those areas. I lived around there. I got to know a lot of the supporters and how they felt. God, they were parochial. God, they loved their club.
Was it emotional for you?
Well, when you look back on it and saw the pleasure these people got out of it, that was great. They got more pleasure out of it. Actually playing, it's a blur because you're under pressure, you know. It's afterwards. I only recently watched the full replay of it.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months. And I then realised that, you know, how great it was. But I met a lot of supporters that said how happy they were they could die now. You know? But it was great. By the way, premiership just reminds me. One of our premiership players is, I'd like to send a cheerio to. He's very, very sick. His name's Ian Cooper, Humper. Humper's very ill. He's recovering from, you know, serious operations. We're all thinking of you, Coop. By the way, on our grand final day, he was BOG. He was best on the ground. Yep. He would have won the Norm Smith.
Had there been one?
Yeah. He was the guy that was 6'4" and
was
built.
He 6'4", was he?
And built like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I knew he was skinny. Yeah.
But he was best on the ground that day.
Okay. You're in the teams of the century for 2 clubs. Your 2 clubs, St Kilda and Richmond. You won Brownlows at both, and you won premierships at both. Who do you relate to more?
Well, I'm grateful for the start, St Kilda, and I had some great period there. When I left because of the circumstances, there was quite a bit of bitterness around it, quite a bit. And that went on for a while, and things were spoken, things were exaggerated, and fibs were told to justify possibly clearing. So that didn't leave me with a great sort of feeling, because when I first played against the St Kilda players with Richmond, every player went for me.
Did they?
Yeah, every player. Friends of mine went for me. And there was very little camaraderie or friendship with the players in the next 10 years, St Kilda players. Yeah.
Gee, I'm surprised at that.
They were very...
Verbally and physically?
On that day?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Friends of mine. Always. I think a lot of it had to do with, you know, people in charge. As I
Is
said...
that a reference to Allan again, Allan Jeans?
A little. Yeah, a little.
Gee.
There's a lot of... A small thing, but a big thing at the time. Ian Drake recruited me. He wouldn't come to Susie and I's wedding.
Because you left? Gee.
When you're playing an opposition, it helps you to dislike them.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. You know, there's no such thing as friendships and that when you played against clubs. You know, you dislike the area where they came from, like you disliked Collingwood area.
Oh, I see, yeah.
I disliked the Essendon area. I never drove through Collingwood. I never drove through Essendon.
You're kidding,
no,
aren't
I'm
you?
serious. That's how you motivate yourself.
You never drove through Collingwood because of the footy club?
Why would you drive through Collingwood?
Well, there's a couple of different reasons for that.
If you want some Vietnamese food, that's about
sure.
that. No, but it's a self-motivation thing. You've got to hate somebody and you build you up. And this is getting back to why, you know, your tension and anxiety and all that sort of thing. Well, I built that up. I built that upon myself.
Okay.
And I thought that kept me motivated. It was self-motivation, like visualisation of when you played, how you were going to play. I visualised all that before it happened.
Okay.
I used to, another word for daydreaming.
Your business career, you're a property developer, aren't you now? Geez, you've had a few jobs, haven't you? Do you have a laundromat at 22?
Yes, so the first job, I built a couple of, well, I didn't, builders built, I had a couple of houses. And then my first business actually was a laundromat in Elstonwick.
Yeah.
We had a lot of Jewish people that followed St Kilda.
Yep.
And I used to listen to them and watch them. And so I thought if it's good enough, that Jewish fraternity, it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
So that was my first business.
Hey, it's a brilliant story. And you know I've wanted you, and not just for me, but for your story to be told. And you told it beautifully, and I'm really pleased that you finally said yes. Thanks, Stewie.
Thanks, Mike.
This has been a Fox Sports production.